Hi, angels. It is Olivia Ponton, and welcome back to Booked and Busy. This is my podcast for the girlies where we deep dive the books that confuse us, haunt us, and sometimes trap us into very suspicious suburban mansions. Today, we're stepping into the world of The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Talk about a book that had its claws stuck into me. It's a psychological thriller, that's for one. Number two, there's a lot of interesting power dynamics, which we love to talk about on this show. And transparently, this book had me questioning if I should be scared in my own home. So today we're going to break the episode into 3 sections. Chapter, which is the book, scene, which is the movie, and the third is the reality check where we compare the book to the movie. So grab a coffee, lock your door, and let's step into the world of the Winchester house. Really quick, we are going to do the beverage of the day. If you've watched the movie, you know the scene where Millie and Andrew are on their first quote-unquote date in New York City, and they were drinking martinis with a little lemon twist the entire night. So that's what we have today. Cheers. The next thing I want to point out is both in the book and the movie, but when Millie shows up for her first interview, she wears humongous glasses to quote unquote play the part. And I thought I would wear my favorite ones. Let's start off with deep diving the book because Freida McFadden's writing style, it genuinely felt like she was whispering secrets into my ear the entire time I was reading. Everything feels intimate, invasive, and honestly immediate. I felt like things were happening one after the other. Every time I turned the page, I was like, what is going on? Okay, let's start off with all the characters we have. Number 1, Millie. She's the unreliable survivor. She's fresh out of prison, and in my opinion, that makes her desperate for stability. In the beginning of the book, she's currently living in her car, and like I said, she's desperate to get a job. She's hyper aware and observant, but on the contrary, she's also incredibly naive. Her past becomes her armor and her biggest vulnerability. Millie went to jail for murder. It's her vulnerability because no one wants to hire her because she went to jail. But it's also her armor at the end of the book, which, spoiler, it ends up helping her with taking down Andrew. In the beginning of the book, it's pretty much immediate discomfort, but we'll talk about that later with Nina. Now we have Nina Winchester. She's the very classic women in the perfect house. She is a genius in my eyes. The deep-rooted things that she had to plan out and act so that Andrew would fall in love with Millie was impeccable. Her behavior was one very questionable thing to me. The amount of aggression she put out into the world, specifically in front of her child, was shocking, to say the least. Nina was the most emotionally manipulative character I have ever read. I mean, it was classic 101. The up and downs of the roller coaster that the husband was put through. In the first half of the book, you genuinely feel bad for him. And she is the CEO of performative perfectionism. The way that her hair is always looking good, the friend groups that she has, she's constantly looking her absolute best. And we find out that's because of Andrew, but the next character we have is Andrew Winchester. He is the epitome of a quiet storm. Quiet, calm storm. He is this charming facade and a deeply unsettling calm. When I was reading it, I genuinely thought he was the good guy, but I was like, he's almost too good. The surrounding characters in the book genuinely applauded him for putting up with such a nut job wife. But I think something to point out is his emotional detachments he has towards Nina's freakouts, like he was used to them by now. That's what I thought of them, at least. He soothes Nina in such a way that is almost a little creepy. But then at the end of it, he's like, oh, and you have time to get your hair done too. I've literally never heard a man say that once. The next character I would say is the house, because I think the house plays a character. It's extremely cluttered, but very curated. The house being clean one day and disgusting and dirty the next is a huge point of symbolism, in my opinion. There's closed doors, there's locked spaces. The attic upstairs, hello? In the movie, it literally says that Andrew designed the house himself, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. I think throughout the book, we also got this like eerie tension that Millie was being watched. And at first I thought that was from Nina or even Enzo. I think another thing to point out is how many times Millie asked for a key in the book. I think it was like 2 or 3 times. I'm sorry, if you're a live-in nanny and you have to ask that more than 3 times, I'd be like, this is getting a little sus. Why don't they want to give me a key to a door that is locked from the outside? In your bedroom, it is locked from the outside. So they can lock you inside your room, but you can't lock it from the inside. Weird, right? Now we're going to talk about a few of the narrative turning points. Number one is when Nina's kindness switched up. At the beginning of the book, she seemed naive and eager to hire Millie. And then the next day, she was accusing her of stealing her PTA notes. I think this is manipulation 101, to be honest. The next one is how Nina's treatment towards Millie worsened throughout the entire book. She starts by giving Millie these incredibly unrealistic tasks. At first, Nina micromanages Millie in a way that is just annoying but not dangerous. She would tell her to clean one thing and then 20 minutes later would ask her, why did you clean that? She would tell her to have dinner ready at 6 p.m. and then when it came around, she would get mad at her for having dinner ready so early. Or even the closet scene in the book where she would have Millie organize everything and then got frustrated at her for moving everything around. That would frustrate me. The inconsistency was the first psychological weapon. The next thing is that she started snapping at the most irrational things. She yells at Millie for folding the towels the wrong way and getting mad at Millie for using the wrong mug and even accusing Millie in front of people for trying to embarrass her when Millie was just following the instructions. She would try to publicly scold Millie quite often. She would snap at Millie telling her to hurry up or try not to ruin anything, and she would beyond overcorrect Millie's actions. She scolds her for bringing out the wrong dish, taking too long to serve food, and like I said, not listening for when Millie listens to the exact instructions. Because at the end of the day, Millie just wants this job. She needs something to tell her parole officer that she's doing. She needs a place to live because she's living out of her car. So the entire first half of the book, all Millie wants to do is a good job. So when she's constantly getting told, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, she's genuinely scared that she was going to use this. And then Nina even takes it a step further and dangles her job in front of Millie, like playing with a cat and a cat toy. It was not fair. I got really frustrated at it. Going back about the public scolding situation, the guests were always extremely uncomfortable during these things. I think at first the guests were kind of just like, oh yeah, it's so hard to find reliable help around here. But then after a certain point, it was getting too far. The next thing that's like textbook manipulation is she starts rewriting things and blames Millie for things that A, didn't happen, or B, Millie did not do. Textbook gaslighting. The first example is the sleepover situation. She calls Millie and she's like, hey, pick Cece up from ballet. That's it. Millie's freaking out. She's at the grocery store. She's like, I don't know what ballet studio she goes to. I don't know where it is. I don't know when. After Millie goes to like 5 different locations, she eventually finds the ballet place. When she arrives, girls are just finishing and she's like, hey, Cece, I'm ready to pick you up. And Cece's like, I'm having a sleepover at my friend's house. Why would you come here and pick me up if I'm having a sleepover? And Millie's freaking out because she's like, your mother called me and told me to pick you up. Like, I need to take you home. So the other mother that they were having this sleepover with calls Nina and is like, hey, I thought we were having a sleepover, da da da. And they ended up having a sleepover. So Millie did all that work for no reason. Again, classic textbook gaslighting. This is simultaneously making Millie second guess if maybe she didn't call her and, she's thinking that she's going a little crazy. Nina, throughout the book, was also trying to blame Millie for moving things that Millie never thought she moved. Perfect example, the PTA notes. This was at more of the beginning part of the book. The house was an absolute mess when Millie arrived, so her first job was to completely clean everything. After a full day of that, she cleans. The following morning, when Millie comes downstairs, Nina is trashing everything. And when I mean trashing, like milk being thrown on the floor, eggs are everywhere, plates are being shattered, trash is being dumped out. Nina is convinced that Millie moved her PTA papers and threw them away. Andrew comes rushing in, is picking her up off the floor, and is trying to calm her down. Nina is just in absolute shambles. He ends up soothing her, which we'll talk about this a little bit more. It was like an odd, soothing way, and then looks at her at the end and tells her that she has time before her PTA meeting to get her roots done of her hair. What? It was just things that when I was reading, I was like, this just doesn't make sense. She got upset with Millie for apparently moving a vase, for misfolding clothing, and then also got upset for something on the counter being moved. And when Millie would insist that she didn't move things or didn't say things or didn't do things, Nina would always respond with, don't lie to me. I know what I saw. I know what I did. And then like I was talking about earlier, this is continuously making Millie question whether she did things or not. The next thing is that Nina started invading Millie's privacy like crazy. She has her bedroom. I would assume that Nina wouldn't go in it. But Nina started moving things around Millie's bedroom. Really subtle, but like books over here, a cup over there. She would also start questioning Millie about her errands or meetings that she had to do. Keeping in mind, Millie was still on parole, so she had her parole meeting, I think it was every Saturday. And when Millie decided to excuse herself and to go to her meeting, even though Nina did not know she was going to a parole meeting, Millie would just say it was something important she had to go and do. Nina would tell Millie that she couldn't take the day off and they had so much they had to get done. But Millie insisted that she could not miss the meeting. And then Andrew came downstairs. It was a whole thing, but then Millie was allowed to go. She would establish this sense of dominance in every single room, including Millie's. Example, the lock outside of the door. Another thing that I thought was interesting is that she would weaponize Millie's past. She would always give hints that she knew where Millie came from, but it was just like this empty, unsaid thing that was between them two. Nina would also hint numerous times that Millie needed to behave to keep her job. And this would make Millie feel like she knew that Nina was onto her, that she was on parole, that she needs this job to stay out of jail. My next red flag is the attic. This is the reveal that changes absolutely everything in this story. At first, we just think the attic is where Millie is going to be living, even though in the house, there was numerous extra bedrooms that she could have stayed in. They insisted that she lived in the attic. The attic changes the way that we view Nina. We think she's a psychopath who's off her medication and is in and out of psych wards when we find out that she's not the insane one. Andrew is. We find out why Andrew acts the way that he does, making sure Nina always has time to get her roots done, that she acts like the perfect wife that he wants. And this is why Nina was so angry with Millie for losing the PTA notes, because that meant that Nina didn't have time to go get her full hair appointment done. And she knew that if she didn't have time to get her roots done, she was going to be sent up into the attic to be tortured. Now going to the second part of the book, the attic is also a sign of symbolism for Millie and how she has to step into the role of a survival strategist. I thought it was pretty crazy in the movie, which we'll talk about later, how when Millie first went over for the introduction interview, they were eating a charcuterie board and there was a knife on the table. When Millie leaves, we see that Nina is still holding that same knife. And then all the way through the movie, we see that the knife that Nina left Millie is that same knife that they had on the charcuterie board. The next thing we're going into is themes throughout the book. Identity. This is the biggest one with Millie. She had a whole other life to her that she was so naive that everyone was going to just turn a blind eye to. We have Millie the housemaid and we have Millie the survivor. Millie the housemaid is very calm, very quiet, just wanting to get her job done, wanting a place to live, just very simple. And then we have Millie the survivor, who's strategic, distrustful, always scanning for danger, and needing a stable job because she's on probation. And before this job, she was living in her car. The book even asks, does survival require you to reinvent yourself or hide the part of yourself that already knows how to survive? I liked how in the book it was cut up into two sections. There was part one, which was from Millie's perspective, and part two, which was from Nina's perspective. The whole first part, I thought Nina was the bad guy. Then switch, we find out Andrew is a raging, psycho, crazy person. And from the book perspective, he gets what Millie thinks he deserves at the end. Andrew does not know that Millie was in jail for murder. Nina knows that and is going to use that to her advantage because she knows that Millie is capable of that. When Nina figures out that Andrew and Millie were having an affair, it was the perfect opportunity for Nina to leave. She left and that was the end of part one. And we find out that she's the happiest version of herself. She's so excited that she got away from this terrible, terrible man. And then we see the pipeline that Millie and Andrew go down and it's great. It's roses. It's dinners in New York City. It's a very loving relationship until Millie does the first wrong thing. And in the movie, it was breaking his mother's china. She was sent up to the attic to help find something, and then he locked her in there. In the book, he made her put a stack of books on her stomach for 3 hours straight. Something about that is just a little peculiar to me. Now we're going to walk through another hallway in the Winchester home, and we're going to open the door of all things movie related. I had the absolute honor of watching the movie before it came out. I watched it in my apartment on my couch in absolute shambles. This was the first book adaptation movie that I have watched that I thought was better than the book. If there was going to be a book that was going to turn into a movie, this was going to be it. I think it was the perfect length for a movie, and the movie was able to capture the essence. Honestly, I was a little wary about the cast. I thought it was a little weird, like Sydney Sweeney. I didn't think it made sense until I watched the movie. She played the character perfectly. The movie gave us something that the book couldn't, which was body language, the weird silences, the weird stares from Enzo. I personally loved Nina on screen because Nina was played by Amanda Seyfried. In the book, I felt like she was more internally crazy, but in the movie, she was very outwardly loud and screaming and breaking things and throwing things everywhere. And I felt like Andrew really captured the essence of like the calm before a storm. He was weirdly calm. We didn't know he was crazy until that very first scene where Millie woke up in the attic. In saying that he drugs them and puts them in the attic, and that's how she woke up, I would be terrified. A few things that I want to talk about from book versus movie that were different. In the book, it was way more gory than I was going to expect. A lot of blood. The first time Andrew had Millie in the attic, she had to cut 21 lines in her stomach with the mother's china that she accidentally broke because Enzo was staring at her. So it was just really bloody and quite gross. And in the book, there was pepper spray that Nina left her. In the movie, that didn't happen. It was just the knife. And when Andrew came in, Millie stabbed him in the neck. And Nina actually re-showed up to the house in the middle of this whole process, which I don't feel like happened in the way that I thought it was going to when I was reading the book. In the movie, Andrew ends up chasing them throughout the house, and Nina was sitting in the upstairs living room when Millie came out of nowhere and pushed him down the stairs, and it was quite gross. I'm gonna be honest. I had to kind of do one of these. What's going on? So I have a few questions for you guys. Which ending felt more satisfying? Because for me, I think the book ending felt a little bit more satisfying, but the movie was more shocking and more believable and more twisted and crazy and dark. So my final verdict is I do personally love the movie better just because I loved seeing everything so visual, and I think the characters played an incredible job in this. I also think the way that the movie was edited and filmed in the house and the daughter's dollhouse in the movie was just insane, because we saw in the movie how they would sit at the table and she would move the mother around in the house, and one time when the mother was gone for 2 nights, the daughter put her up in the attic. And Millie was like, that's weird. That's my room. Okay, Booked and Busy, I want to know your opinion. Do you like the book or the movie better? And that is a wrap on episode 4 of Booked and Busy. And thank you so much for stepping inside of the Winchester's house with me. The new episode is after the holidays, so please stay safe and have a beautiful Christmas. I love you guys. Bye.